ISIS brides. Who are they? Why did they leave Australia? Why do they want to come back? And should the government stop them? If the government should, is there anything the government can do? You will have been hearing a lot of conflicting reports on all of these questions that I've just asked, and I want today's video to try to serve as a bit of a tension breaker, a bit of a informer to give you the ability to make up your own mind. So from 2012 onwards, people from all around the world, men and women, started traveling to the regions of Iraq and Syria controlled by a group known as the Islamic State. In its original form, as it was then, the Islamic State was an insurgency that had gained so much power and so many vehicles and equipment from the fall of areas of Syria and certain parts of Iraq that they actually amassed a significant territory that they controlled. At one point, over half of the territory of both Iraq and Syria, so creating a significant caliphate they ruled over, straddling the national borders of both of those countries. Among those who joined the call for global jihad and answered the call to become part of the caliphate was a number of Australian men who joined to become foreign fighters of ISIS, and with them went wives and girlfriends, and in some instances, kids who were already born. In other instances, children were born over there, or some of the older children who went with their parents subsequently had children. So there are surviving now wives, children, and grandchildren of these ISIS foreign fighters, all of whom were killed at one stage or another in the multiple years of war that ISIS existed and was ultimately crushed by American, Iraqi, and coalition forces. So these people are now currently residing in Syria, and they're in refugee camps. And the first that this broke of the news was when we heard reports that this group of people had been issued passports by the Australian government, and they'd been turned away at the Syrian airport to come back to Australia. So it turns out that a prominent Islamic doctor living in Sydney who contributed to Tony Burke's re-election campaign had basically gone through the process of obtaining passports for these women and was actively trying to facilitate their return to Australia. Initially, Anthony Albanese and Tony Burke denied any knowledge of this and claimed that the government wasn't offering any support to the ISIS brides in order to bring them home. But as time's gone on and more information about the connection between this Islamic doctor and Tony Burke have emerged, what's kind of become clear is that the Albanese government didn't give money to these people to help them travel home. That was organised by other people. But they absolutely issued them passports, knowing who they were. And they were essentially looking the other way, hoping that there wouldn't be any media reporting and hoping that these people would arrive back in Australia. And then once they were here, media furor and opposition politics wouldn't make a difference. But that isn't what happened. The story was leaked before the ISIS brides could travel on their Australian passports back to Australia. And you've had this sort of series of ongoing fallback positions by Anthony Albanese and Tony Burke saying, well, we didn't know about it. And then, okay, we did know about it, but we didn't support them in any way. And then, okay, we did know about it and we did kind of allow them to have passports issued, but you can't deny Australian citizens from having a passport, can you? Well, that's one of the things that I really wanted to give you the clarity on today. And you can see behind me here, we've got Section 14 of the Australian Passport Act 2005. And Section 14 says that a competent authority, so that could be the minister, could be someone acting under the minister's delegation, basically anyone who's responsible for reviewing and issuing an application for a passport, can refuse a passport or refuse to renew a passport where they're concerned that somebody might engage in conduct that's harmful to Australia's interests or detrimental to the safety and security of Australian citizens. Now, I would have thought that a group of women who have been living overseas in a foreign war zone, kids who have had videos posted with kids holding up severed heads in ISIS propaganda videos, which some of these children have, and that's horrific. And obviously, children can't be held responsible for the sins of their fathers, but the mothers and brides who brought their children into that war zone absolutely can be. And whatever they got there and whatever the morality of that is, these kids have now seen and experienced horrific things, and undoubtedly these people are still to some extent loyal to this radical Islamic ideology. So often you'll hear me talk about the need for compassion, the need for non-violent and rehabilitation in dealing with criminal justice. But you've also seen me do a video about make exile great again. And this is a situation where the government doesn't even have to exile these people. They've chosen to exile themselves. So I think they've made a conscious choice to essentially forfeit Australian citizenship. They've chosen to leave the country. And this is absolutely a situation where the government should exercise powers it does have to prevent them from getting a passport. So ultimately, we've now got escalating pressure. We've got escalating rhetoric from Anthony Albanese and Tony Burke now trying to distance themselves from this. But these people still have passports, and unless the government exercises the power they have to cancel these passports or to otherwise prevent these people from returning, they will still be able to do so at some stage. So what do you think? Should these people be free to come home? Do you think that the Albanese government is just trying to outweight the media furor and interest and hope that you stop paying attention so that Tony Burke's fundraising and donor friends can achieve this objective? I'd love to hear what you think. As always, like, share this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this content. See you next time.